I am presently the secretary to the State Ministry for Educational Reforms, Open Universities and Promotion of Distance Education. I also is the rector of the SIBA campus in Pallekele, Kandy. As an educationist, I'm US educated, but of course, I got my PhD in 1976, the first PhD. I have another PhD as well, but since then, you perhaps have seen my books published in US. Some of my books are university reference books at the postgraduate level, 5-star Amazon rated books. And so the reforms process is actually, I got involved with the present president, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, when he organized the Vietmaga. I led that education discussions, and that is how I got involved. And then he requested me to become the advisor to the ministry. Subsequently, when the ministries were formed, I was asked to become the secretary, so I accepted it. And let me share my screen, and I will try to be brief. This is a long, the topic listed goes as proposed educational reforms in curriculum and school system. And I will pay more emphasis to the curriculum changes, and briefly I will also mention about the school system changes. The reforms is a larger agenda. We have 9 areas that covers the reforms in Sri Lanka, from the preschool education to higher education. I am not going to talk about preschool education. Just I will mention that earlier preschool was never under the Ministry of Education. It was a separate subject under a different ministry. This is the first time preschool education has come under the Ministry of Education. There was no preschool education policy. Our ministry developed a preschool education policy. It has been approved. Finally, today we have a preschool education policy in the country, and an implementation plan that has been developed by the provincial councils following the policy framework that is being implemented. Then there are host of administrative reforms that goes on in education sector, which are to be introduced very soon. What I'm going to talk more about the curriculum reforms today. That includes actually health policy. School health policy is also almost ready to go for cabinet approval. And the school system reforms comes with the national schools, 1,000 plus national schools scheme. Then the teacher as well as all educational sector professional development is another important area that we cover. Then linking general education with vocational education, and also expanding distance, actually rather than distance, what we call is blended learning opportunities for children are all in pipeline. Higher education reforms, I am not very much involved. That comes under the University Grants Commission in Sri Lanka. So when it comes to reforms, I need not explain this very much, but why reforms is another important issue. When you take an education system, we generally look at 2 broad indicators. One is how efficient is the system internally. So this internal efficiency includes, or it covers, when you take a cohort of children to the system, in Sri Lankan case, about 350,000 children enter grade 1 every year. And then what happens to those 350,000 children as they go into the system? Now, Sri Lanka actually, though we talk of reform, Sri Lanka already has a very good education system, which may have its own shortcomings, which we are trying to reform. But internal efficiency is quite good, because why I say that, from the number of children who should enter the system of education at age 5, 98.5% children enter, all normal children, other than the more severely disabled children. All others enter the school system. When you compare with many other our neighboring countries, this is a massive achievement for Sri Lanka. And then when you look at the system completion, primary education is completed by the entire cohort, except a few students dropping out. Actually, even that can be stopped in Sri Lanka. That is in reforms. We aim to stop that, to zero in on the dropout. When compare with some of our neighboring countries, in South Asia, this is very high standing. We are in par with any developed country. 99% of our children entering the system completes the 5-year schooling at primary school. Then what is more important is whether the 5-year completed primary education completed children getting into the secondary system. There again in Sri Lanka, it's very high. Even developed countries or more developed countries like Thailand and Malaysia and other countries, not all primary children get into the secondary system. In Thailand, it is around 66-70% range. But in Sri Lanka, 98% of or 99% of the primary children who complete primary gets into grade 6. These are high parameters in any standards. Then similarly, 9 years of education is completed. Why I say 9 years? Because that's the compulsory education range. It's also completed by nearly 90% of the cohort, which is very high. There are some small dropouts, but nearly 85% completes GC O level at certificate level to complete the junior secondary education. At senior secondary A level, of course, we know from O level, some leave the system, some join go into the advanced level classes seeking higher education, some join the vocational streams, and many. So there are about 100,000 people out of the 350,000 who leaves the system. So the internal efficiency we are quite happy with. But our biggest problem is the other parameter, the external efficiency of the system. What happened to these graduates when they leave the school system at different stages? Where do they go and how efficient are they in society, in the world of work and other things? When it comes to that, Sri Lanka definitely has a problem, because even the university graduate today, after completing general education, they go to the universities, they come out and unable to find employment, unable to get into, most of them are unemployed for long years. So the external efficiency in the job market is very low. I will show you. Beside that, there are many other issues. I will talk about these external efficiency issues in a few seconds, actually. Then the other important thing is that we have a lot of disparities in the school system. There is no equity. The present school system itself indicates the disparity. You know that in most of the developed countries, we have a school system where primary, junior secondary, senior secondary is the system. But in Sri Lanka, if you take the school classification, we have type 3 schools, type 2 schools, 1C schools, 1AB schools, national schools. This all indicates the disparity, actually. This is actually confirming the social disparity that exists. Its school system directly replicates that. So we need to change that. This is another important thing. Then the other is how relevant is the education to our children. These are the three main issues that why we address reforms. When I go to the rationalization of the school system, we want to definitely bring school system to a rational system, because right now the grade 1 admissions, grade 6 admissions, grade 12 admissions are all national issues. So the school system will be rationalized under the reforms, having primary schools, junior secondary schools, and senior secondary schools addressing these grade 1, grade 6, grade 12 entry issues. Right now, we have very good schools, and unfortunately, only about 20% to 22% of our children find one of those good schools. Good schools in the sense that, popular schools that parents are attempting to admit their children. But our objective of these reforms by 2024, we expect that, we'll be able to increase that 22% to at least to 65% to 70% range. But that doesn't mean job is done. Any reform activity needs longer time. It may take about 10 years if you stay on the same philosophy and the principles that we try to bring reforms. By another 7 to 8 years, we believe that we will be able to bring 100% equity in the school admissions policies. So this is why the school system needs to be corrected. So right now what we are going to talk about is administrative reforms. I am not going to talk. I said I will talk of curriculum reforms. They are actually school reforms, school system reforms with 1,000 national schools, and the health policy is actually an integral part of the school system. We have already developed that health policy in consultation with health ministry and all actors. Actually, many people have joined this to develop the policy. It is in last stages. We are just finalizing that with the curriculum that will also go into the school systems very soon. Then why these external efficiency issues are? Now, Sri Lanka has a real serious issue on health parameters of our younger children. Now, the WHO as well as our health ministry has done surveys where it has shown, that already 10 to 14-year-old children in Sri Lanka, 20%, 24% of our adolescents are already in type 2 diabetics. So this particular risk factor has to be mitigated through education. We need to see that these issues are addressed in education and get the young people on track, because education is actually to develop human capital. In modern sense, we are not talking about human resource development, we are talking about human capital development. When you say human capital, what you mean by is actually the people who leave the system after education should be able to join the world of work directly. That needs two important indicators, parameters. One is that they should be definitely healthy. If health is gone, even an educated person is useless to the system. Therefore, we need to ensure that there is good health in every child that we produce from the school system. Therefore, we place high importance to health in our educational reforms, because we don't need to say the danger of diabetics as well as other diseases. So there is a solid program in the educational reforms to ensure the health factors of our future generation. Similarly, 70% now I understand this is not 70, it is closer to 80% of Sri Lanka's deaths are caused by non-communicable diseases. These are all things that we can avoid. If the precautions are taken, these are basically cancer related, chronic lung diseases, diabetes I already mentioned, heart diseases, and various other things. This is causing basically because of the lack of physical activity and sports for children, and unhealthy diets, and drugs, alcohol, smoking, and bad social behavior. So these things are highly, we need to address these issues at young age with our children. And, so we are taking measures in these educational reforms to address these things seriously. So we have already developed the curriculum where physical activity and sports will be given prime importance. Then the dietary education has to be given top priority in our educational modules that we are introducing. I do not know how to address the issue drugs, alcohol, smoking. I know many attempts are taken by many, but Sri Lanka still are champions in alcohol consumption and various other things. But we will do our best to develop the value system in children to avoid these things under the new education policy. Another serious issue that we are faced with today, that serious issue of alarming rate of divorce in Sri Lanka. This is all happening within the first 3 years of marriage of our young children who are doing very well in education, getting 9 A's at O level, 3 A's at A level, getting first classes in the university, but within 3-4 years of their marriage, many of them get divorced. For a day, there are 400 divorce cases in Sri Lanka. This social services director points out as an alarming rate. If this happens, our social fabric get disturbed. You know that, in Sri Lanka, divorce is a serious issue, not like in the Western concepts. Particularly for a woman to find another opportunity for another happy family is very difficult in Sri Lankan cultural context. So this is another reason. This is another area we have to address, because the divorce comes because of the lack of life skills. No family values have been learned by the children. To the various emotional issues, social issues have to be addressed through this. Then that unemployment issue comes mostly because of lack of skills for the 21st century, the technological skills and the English language and other life skills. Even right now in Sri Lanka or across the world, there are many, more 100,000 technology-related jobs available, but our graduates are not fit to get there. So these are issues that we are trying to address. Then beside that, we all know COVID-19 is another new threat on education. We had to keep the school systems closed nearly 2 years. In some countries, it is over 2 years. So we need to look at education from a different eye, from different angle. For instance, we need to cultivate self-learning, home-based learning, and teachers' role to be changed under these pandemic situations. If that arises again or repeats again, we should be prepared for it. So the new education reforms are addressing all these issues. The strength and the nature of the proposed curriculum is actually we are trying to bring an active contributor to the national development through education. That is what I said. We are not just talking about human resource development today. We are talking for human capital development. That is the jargon of the fourth industrial revolution. That's the jargon of the knowledge economy. Those are the skills needed for the 21st century. Then we want effective and efficient work-oriented people. Not that, general education is trying to vocationalize, but we need to create a mentality and develop generic skills which will stay with them for life, increasing their fitness for the world of work. Then today we don't have entrepreneurial mindset in our children. They are all dependents. They are all looking for government jobs. They are all looking for employment from somebody. So we want to change that mentality, and we want to offer an education where a child will be able to find employment themselves or develop employment for even others. So another issue is that the patriotic citizenship. We want to have patriotic citizens. Today, actually, our children are mostly looking for education abroad and settling down abroad. Of course, there are historical reasons for these things. There was no peace. There was war. All these situations about 4 decades gave this mentality to our children. Today, we have overcome most of these things. If we have a just society, if we have good peace in the country, we can develop patriotic citizenship again, and for children to work for your own country for the benefit of your own society. So beside these things, we need to develop good human beings, with good emotional and social development. Then also in our educational policies, as I said, we want a member of a happy family, because these family values are deteriorating, and these are alarming issues in society. So these are the basic fundamental goals of the national education policy reforms that we are doing. We have selected 4 pillars for reforms. I'm not going into details. We want cognitive skills and scholarship. These are very important things, because people need to develop their knowledge and cognitive skills and scholarship through education. Then we want to make them more productive citizen. To become a productive citizen, you have to be healthy. That is very important. Then people with good family values, life skills, and generic and technical skills. The generic skills refers to have certain value-based, core value-based skills which are natural to the people, not artificially learned. To cultivate them to become generic skills, you have to work from child's days. Same thing, emotional and moral development. To become a good person, one has to have good emotions. Today, emotional intelligence is more important than IQ. In the before 1990s, people believed in IQ, intelligence. But today, after 1980, some research done in the leading universities, in particularly in US, and the books written by the new publications came out in 1990s, emotional intelligence has become, or EQ has become, more important than the IQ. Because IQ, you get it, you inherit by birth, you get it. But EQ has to be learned through education, through various other means. So the success of a person depends 70% on EQ than IQ. That is what the research shows. So we are placing high importance in educational reforms to develop the EQ and the morals of our younger generation. Similarly, 21st century or the fourth industrial revolution is based on IT, media, technological skills, and various other global demands for vocations. So these are all parameters that we have adhered or given importance in our curriculum reforms and educational reforms to bring a generation which will as much as transformed into these systems. When you do that in the curriculum, we are trying to bring more than subject-oriented curriculum, thematic curriculum. Of course, these are subjects, but the difference is we are integrating STEM education very much as possible. So the STEM education is actually, we are taking one step beyond that, not just on science, technology, mathematics and things alone, but we are also taking arts and other value education into our education system. These are all, when you take themes, those themes are studied from all STEM values as well as our cultural values, our emotional values, and all those things are integrated with liberal arts and various other things. What is important is curriculum reforms. This time we are not looking at knowledge. We are not measuring cognitive achievement alone. We take one step beyond learning content to develop skills. Now, for instance, a simple thing, if you take English language, now we teach English for 13 years in schools and even universities, sometimes 16 years, 17 years, but our output, our children, our graduates cannot speak English. This has to change. So the English teaching, mother tongue teaching, second language Sinhala or Tamil learning, all that will be tested on skills-oriented models like the SAT model, where the child will have to speak the language, demonstrate the language skills, and not just paper pencil test. This is applied to all subject areas, including mathematics, science, and all subjects. We are looking for skills. So the examination system will change in Sri Lanka to not from paper pencil test. We need paper pencil test. I'm not saying that paper pencil test will be out. Paper pencil will be given less value, but performance test will be given more value in the system. So we are trying to get these values that I talked earlier, and at the same time promote generic skills like communication skills, collaborative skills, critical thinking, and creativity as essential things. So we are going from skills oriented, more than the textbooks, we are now changing to modular system. I will explain this in a few minutes. Now take the primary education. Of course, our primary education is quite solid. there are issues in primary education. Largely, our primary curriculum has been devalued because of the scholarship examination pressure. But other than that, our primary education stands quite good. We are covering mother tongue, English language, second language, mathematics, elementary science and environmental sciences, religion and value education, integrated aesthetic education, health and physical education, and co-curricular activities are part of primary education. Primary education will have basic changes the way it is delivered, and we are trying to bring more equity into primary education to see that our primary schools are meeting minimum requirements, minimum standards. Those are the most investments that we are trying out. This 2022 coming year, we are trying it out in 104 primary schools to see how this works. In 2023 January, this new primary education system will be introduced in grade 1 and 2, and then the following year grade 3, 4, 5. And it will, by year 2023, the new curriculum will get into the entire school system, but grade wise, by 24, it will reach all grades in the country. The junior secondary education is what we are mostly concentrating from grade 6 to grade 11 to introduce mother tongue and literacy skills, English language and second language skills, and also various other languages are included, mathematics for life, science and technology for life and society, economics, commerce, entrepreneurship, and financial literacy for lifelong learning, history, geography, and global studies, the civic education, religion and value education, aesthetic education, of course, in 7 different areas, information and communication technology, media, e-commerce, and e-learning, and health and sports. These are all compulsory core subjects in the curriculum. This will be on modular basis. I will explain what is a module in a while. Now this is the reorganization of the school year. Right now in Sri Lanka, we have 210 days of schooling and 5 working days. That means actually if you divide the 210 days by 5 working days, we have 42 weeks, schooling weeks in a year. The 42 weeks are organized into 3 terms. So one term having 14 weeks. We are going to call this term. I have no problem with if you call it even a term or a semester. We all know that internationally a school semester, most of the US universities are now in the trimester system where 3 semesters are run. Many universities run 2 semesters still. The 12-week study, from these 14 weeks, we expect 12 weeks of study weeks. 2 weeks for we are letting for assessment and other extracurricular activities. So the 12 weeks, and for a day, we expect 6 hours of schooling. For 5 days, we have about 30 hours. 30 hours into 12 weeks, we have about 360 hours taken for study time. That is the kind of the time frame that we have for a school semester. We want to increase school hours from 7:30 to 2 p.m. Now it is 1:30. We want to increase the schooling time by 30 minutes, which I have tested with many. We have tested with many schools. Even day before yesterday in Kandy, I had 230 principals in a seminar, and all said 30 minutes increase is not an issue. It will be accepted by everybody. It's good. So we will increase the school time for a week, increase the time by 2.5 hours. This helps us to accommodate new programs. What do you call by module? The Sri Lanka has one of the issues in current education is that heavy bag of books to carry every day. Children take one textbook from January to December in the school bag. This will be changed. We will have semester-based modules issue. Of course, this has more administrative work. One area that definitely we will run into problems is to ensure that the books are distributed 3 times in a year for the 3 semesters. A module is actually 10 hours of study for the junior secondary phase, not for the senior secondary phase. So when 10 hours of study means it's a booklet, but we are rather giving a book, we are giving a workbook. The student will work in this workbook, and within 10 hours that study can be, an average child can complete it in 10 hours. A fast track child can complete it in much less than that, and a slow learner may take a little longer. So these are all prepared on self-learn basis on authentic principles, relating it to their current life experience and the knowledge base. So these modules are very interesting modules. Already many modules are produced. Then each module of 10 hours of study, we grant them 1 credit hour. So we are going into a credit system, and also the grade point average system for grading and all that. So this credit hour, a child, we can take about 30 credits a semester. That's the average child. For a child to pass the grade and go to the next with minimum learning, we have identified about 20 credit hours with minimum of 2.0 GPA. A person can get into the next grade. So these are all new additions to the system, and we have to educate the children as well as parents on these new parameters. We are testing this next year in our school system, and at the same time we are planning a lot of trainings for next year to give this new framework to the parents and teachers and school principals. By already many people are trained. The basic structure of the modular curriculum will look like this, the semester 1. Now I have to tell you one more other thing. Of the semester wise the modules, we have divided into 3 important aspects. One is called essential modules. Every child should study this essential component. These are the essential components that every child should study. We have placed about 60% of the curriculum's value to this component. Then we have 10% here. Every child has to do this sports and extracurricular activities. These are all for their leadership development, emotional and social development, and to ensure that their physical fitness and health. About 10% of the curriculum time is given for sports and extracurricular activities and health. The further learning is another area where we are changing from. Today, present day curriculum in Sri Lanka is monotonous, stereotype. Every child studies the same thing. Now this 30% brings diversity to the curriculum. We diversify the curriculum here. These further learning units, a child can select according to her interest and ability. If someone is interested of learning about a particular module, thing, they can select that module. So in a class, in a given time, 10 children may study 10 different things. These are all self-learning modules. Teacher is providing basic guidance and facilities on, and make assessments on various aspects. Even assessment is built into all the modules. The assessment has several steps. I will explain to you in a while, in the future slides. This section is very, very interesting. Now, who writes these modules? These are all vocational oriented modules. These modules are not written by NIE staff and the teachers alone. Actually, all these modules are prepared by people like now, for instance, there are 15 minor cash crops in Sri Lanka, like cinnamon, cashew, the cardamoms, and tea, rubber, coconut, and the traditional ones. There are 15 like that. So all these modules are prepared together with NIE and some of the teachers involved by NIPM, National Institute for Plantation Management. All planters and those who are managing those crops, these are the people who have prepared this module. Very, very interesting. I can show you some modules if you're interested, but I don't think the time will permit us to do that. But these modules are already ready. We are preparing agriculture-related modules with Gannorwa agriculture research trainers. We are preparing the animal husbandry related, the livestock related modules with Gannorwa livestock department. We are preparing fisheries related modules with fisheries department related training institutes. We are doing gem and jewelry and various all other things with practicing people. Many working people are involved in preparing of these further learning modules. These will vocationalize education and also create the entrepreneurship mindset right from childhood to learn various things that they can do, produce. Similar thing will be happen in IT, industry, and other things. We won't be able to do all these things complete 100% by in a year or two. In 10 years' time, if the curriculum goes well, children will have a highly diversified learning area, and this 30% can be increased as we go on and adding more, giving more value to form human capital rather than developing human resources. So all this is in pipeline, and you can see that in a year child can earn about 90 credits. Actually, a child can even if they complete 60 credit hours in a given year, that is enough to certify to pass a grade level and go to the next level. But a fast track child can complete 90 credit hours. So we are not giving fast track immediately, but our thinking is that in 2 years' time, after studying this, how it works, we should be able to allow very likely those who can go fast can sit for their O level and complete O level not in 11 years, may be able to complete in 10 years. But I am not committing for this. I call this is the first edition of the curriculum. The second edition level in another 2 years, we should be able to re-evaluate our process of learning and bring some changes into the what we are proposing for the initial stage. What we are trying to bring here is actually, in place of passive learning, we are trying to bring active learning to children. The children, this is not teacher-based, classroom-based learning. This is very different from that. The skills-oriented learning is to form human capital. People should be able to do things. So the active learning means these are all activities that child will perform, not just learn. So the notes taking is not the expectation. Our expectation is going a step beyond content, the child practice education. Do things at home, at school, in community, collect information, analyze information, report information, may individually, by groups. So this learning culture will change. You know, we had been talking about child-centered education for a long time. It is already there in documents, but nothing happened. This time we are not talking about child-centered education. We call it learning-centered education. Learning-centered in the sense we place top priority to the learning component. So it is semester-based modular curriculum. Learning takes over the teaching. Module facilitates mostly self-learning, reduce the pressure of examination and increase assessment rather than examinations. Performance assessment is given high importance. We have diversified the curriculum to go from stereotype learning to go beyond that. We are introducing the new concept of authentic learning. This is not new. Of course, this was there. John Dewey advocated this in long years ago when he had the experimental school in Chicago. That of course didn't happen even in US, but we all know that authentic learning. Steve Revington is the known figure in this area. Those who are in US, they may be knowing it's highly rated, well practiced in Wisconsin state. This is where actually most of the experiments were done in the school system, and it works quite well. It has gone to Australia much faster than that, and Canada and other countries. Now we are authentic learning, relates learning to life, work, world of work. You know, the scans report in US, scans report came from the Labor Ministry that advocated for the 21st century to go beyond the school walls to learn. So they said these are given high importance in our reforms as well. The Now our education system mostly were looking at lower level of knowledge. What the examination measured, when you analyze, you can see it was mostly lower order learning content, has not been gone beyond that. So we are trying to bring higher order learning and to deepen the content learning to skills oriented learning. These are highly challenging things to do, but I don't think it's difficult to do, because the child has no problem. Our bottleneck will be the teacher and the conventional classroom. So we are trying our best to educate the principals and the including the parents. The next year we are giving a lot of importance to media campaigning and introduce many measures to reach parents to give them the new value system for education. So in this, actually, we all know, many of our educationists know, we were on Bloom's taxonomy earlier. Bloom's taxonomy came up in 1961, and it's a very old version. Now the new version of that is better known as Anderson's classification. This classification is what we are now using in these reforms. You know, the new things are this. Actually, those who know Bloom's taxonomy, they remember that we call it knowledge, understanding, apply, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation were the cognitive process criteria that was there in the Bloom's taxonomy. And that is what we used across the world, including US. All textbooks were written, school curriculum was planned, examination was planned on these lines. Now it is only one line. It was a two-way table for Bloom's. Now it has become three-dimensional with the new classification. They have brought a new dimension called knowledge dimensions, which is also there in Bloom's taxonomy. The factual knowledge, conceptual knowledge, procedural, and new concept in psychology is called metacognitive knowledge. Metacognition is nothing but training people to reflect back on their learning. So this is a stepwise increase of knowledge going up into creativity, because we all know, if creativity doesn't come in a society, there is no advancement in that society. That is why Sri Lanka is very much stagnated, because we are only concentrating on knowledge and these factors, but we were never taking our children to become more creative. So what we are doing is, actually, we are going into this step. We already have this understanding, remembering, all these things. We want to use knowledge. I will give a small example to illustrate. Some people think that, this can be done only at high level. It's not. This can be even done at preschool or even at home for a small kid. Say, for instance, you give a toy for your son or a daughter to play. Now the son plays with the toy car, say, for instance, and you can watch how he plays. He will bend his, then go to a lower level table or something, and bending his head, he will see how the wheels turn, how the car runs, what happens, and all that. So once they use it, then only people generate ideas. Unless you generate new ideas, creativity never comes. So to use something, if you have just knowledge, these things doesn't happen there. Once you use that knowledge, it generates thinking in your head. This is what we are trying to do in our new curriculum. We don't stop here. We take one step more for them to do things and generate new ideas. These ideas can be conventional ideas, can be new ideas. We do not know. You see, the child who is playing with the car, after a while, when the mother comes, you will see the child has broken the car. He has taken it out because he generated so much of ideas. He wanted to see what is happening inside. So he deconstructed it. He wants to analyze that. That is the purpose of deconstruction. He deconstructs to see what parts are there, how those are, what is happening within the parts. Then after that, what happens? The child again try to put it back, assemble. This assembly is not that easy. Unless the child deconstructed and see the relationship of the parts, how one part relates to the other, assembly is not going to be easy. These are operational skills. These are the skills that make the person to a higher order thinking. So this is the stage you can see many parents will see at home a small child after breaking the toy, he cannot put it back. He starts crying, throwing it, and a conventional mother perhaps will shout at the child. But actually a creative mother should help the child to see the relationship of the parts. How analysis, of course, has three segments. One is analysis of elements. The second one is called analysis of relationships. How the parts are relating to each other. Then the third one is the principle of relationships. What principles are there in that analysis? So the child goes through this knowingly or unknowingly. See, many mechanics who work without any formal education, good training, they still know that. They self-learn. They deconstructed. They saw how a head boss was doing it. He cleaned it. He saw how it was assembled. He learned those skills. Then what happened? Once it is done, the child naturally reflects back. That is where metacognition is very important. To always we have to train children to look back, revisit your material, revisit your experience. Once you do that, only the child gets new thinking to design things. Unless this process happens in the child's head, you won't be able to bring innovations, and we will not be able to produce creative people. So this is the process we call constructivist theory, allows the child to construct knowledge. Child goes through a process, may not create in the same way, not in the teacher's way, but the child's way. That is why we call the learning is in the center of these reforms. So this is what we are trying to do, bring metacognitive process into the child, bring more creative thinking into the child, and get out of this low order thinking alone is not sufficient for education. We are trying to bring higher order thinking into the child's head. So this is in essence, the educational reforms, the new learning material that we create, the modules that we create are all based on these principles. We may not do it 100% correct in one go. In this first edition, we will have a lot of hiccups because I had to train NIE staff, National Institute of Education staff. I have trained them over 1 year on this new thinking. And now they are produced modules. I see the modules, some are extremely good, some are medium, some are not very good. And we cannot stop it there. Let them do it. The first edition will have errors. The second edition in 2 years, we will revise this material and bring them in better order. So the reforms is something that will go on. When Kannangara, late Dr. Kannangara started reforms in 1944, still it is unfinished. Because reform is something that, that will go on for a long time. So we also expect these reforms will take about 10 years to take root and work well. But we need to have patience to absorb the system one by one. So the authentic learning, one can see what it means. This is actually the 1985, he started the concept, but he almost won the so-called Nobel Prize in Education is better given by the Barclay Gem Foundation, and Steve Revington won it in 2015. Since then, authentic learning is advocated all over the world. Authentic learning is what we are following in these reforms as well, as much as possible. That is nothing much, but actually giving more experience to children to learn. That is what we are trying to create. So the traditional classroom will change to authentic environment. The conventional exams were all stressful. This is how people studied. But what we want is actually children to do this, work with individuals, we work as groups, and to make learning more meaningful to the child. That is what we are trying to bring. So the essential learning component will have about 60%. That component will be essential for everybody. It is compulsory, and there will be more teacher involvement in this 60% of the curriculum. This 30%, the further learning modules, many areas to cover and diversified qualitative information. This will decide actually whether a child is fit to go for mathematics or going for biological studies or biosciences or going for aesthetics or going for humanities, because from grade 6 onwards to grade 11, child will select on his own according to the interest and the ability various modules. We will keep track of that. We will have consultation with parents. We are introducing vocational and career guidance from grade 6. The already plans are being made to select 15,000 teachers for school counseling and career guidance. And career guidance material is already getting prepared. Once we do that, this qualitative information, we will be able to guide the child to tell the parents where the child should go, which stream the child should take. So the compulsory health, physical education, sports, club activities. This is what we are trying to do in school system rationalization as well. All schools will have these things happening, not in the big schools alone. We have already talked to sports ministry and education working hand in hand to bring sports to all schools, provide basic facilities, equipment, all these things already in negotiation, and it's going on. Many schools are given school grounds where there is no school ground. Our difficulty is to do it in the urban sector, but in the rural sector, our priority is rural sector. Rural schools will be definitely promoted with all physical facilities, and we will introduce club activities. We are already working with cadet clubs, scouting, girl guiding. We have already discussed. They have already agreed to go to all schools with cadetting, guiding, and all these things. We will introduce clubs at various levels, youth clubs, environment clubs. We will bring the rural school as to a profile that we expect the school to come. We want to provide a good grade 1 to all children, good grade 6 to everyone. So at A level, we are going to rationalize school system further to set up science schools, aesthetic schools, like that rationalized school system on the resources that we have to give every child a good school for science, those who want to study science, a good aesthetic school for those who want to study aesthetics, good agriculture school for those who want to do agriculture. Like that, all subject areas. We are introducing a vocational stream beside the technology stream. We are also introducing computer science as a separate stream. So many changes will come in advanced level as well. We are still not ready with that. We are now still in discussion on grade 12 and 13 education, because that has to go with the universities as well. Now, if you take the assessment framework, will change with that. Why I call it, we don't call it examination framework, we call it assessment framework, because we need assessment, we need evaluations, but not necessarily examinations in the same way. The learning outcomes are already, in every module you have the learning outcomes and standards identified. Criteria of assessment is mentioned in the module itself. This modular curriculum will have the standards. The child knows what standard the child should reach. Also, the teacher knows what standard the child should reach. So at the same time, we are more concerned not of the end product, but we are interested in process of assessment, process of learning. Whether the child is doing the right things to learn, whether he makes mistakes is not an issue. What we want is the child is engaged in learning and doing experimental work, experiencing things to learn. Making mistakes is not an issue, because making mistakes is education. So the education allows people to make mistakes, but by practice, then they learn it. That is what we want. They will be continuously assessed, and we will go for performance assessment to see whether the child can perform. To do that, we bring Department of Examination this time to the province. We will have a commissioner of examination in every province and set up assessment panels at the provincial level, actually at the zonal level of the educational zones. So the schools will have panels of judges visiting and assessing their portfolios and the work done and accomplishments. So accordingly, school-based assessment grades will be given. There will be observation checklist. Most of the modules have rubric for assessment and individual group work, portfolios, discussions, seminars, presentations, and all that will come into this. Then we also, beside that, we have external summative examination as well. So that will complete the GC O level and A level examinations will be gone accordingly. So this assessment framework is already developed. By the way, these assessment frameworks as well as curriculum things that we do are evaluated by many levels. We have a national steering committee to evaluate it. They regularly examine the modules now. And we also further submit these assessment framework. We have submitted to, we are working with Finland education team as well as South Korean education team. And we also submit this team to Australian team nominated by Asian Development Bank. They all have cleared these things. So we are following very much international standards, not just making changes. These are all validated by more acceptable education systems, like the Finland is now the best education system people rate, and South Korea is our Asian the best doing country, and Australia is another reputed. These are selected by Asian Development Bank, and actually Finland team was here. 10 people visited recently us, and they were all happy to see these modules and how these things have happened. The Korean team is working with assessment system, and the Australian team is also, we are submitting documents during time to time for review, and all this process goes on. Now, actually, one important thing that I would like to mention here is that we are not only for distance education, we are going for blended learning. In every module, you can see beside the teacher and the school, children can learn from various things. We have educational TV channel. Now, by January, we will have 10 educational channels on education. These are all targeting different grade levels. We have a e-Taksalava learning platform. This is the national platform for learning, which has LSM, Learning Management System is there, which is actually still developing, but quite well. About 4% of our children use it now. You know, by this year, by December 22, all schools will have optic fiber connections. It is already in the budget, and we have already given it to 200 new schools by December, and already learning platform has been tested in these 200 schools. It is working with Technology Ministry. Then already we have 6 TV channels working on education material. It will become 10 very soon. And then we have another thing called Gurugedara. This Gurugedara programs runs on Rupawahini, iChannel in Tamil, and the other Sinhala channel as well. Nanasa program runs. Besides all these things, internet to all schools will come. Electricity to all schools will come in the next year. Then printed material for students with home-based learning will come. The National Content Development Center will be established in Sri Lanka. Already Exim Bank Korea has given us the money. We have started the work at Homagama. A content development center will be established to develop all blended learning material. That is already in pipeline. It will be completed in 2 years with the 2 field level officers, one in Trincomalee and one in Galle, for easy distribution of material. and we will strengthen already we have strengthened the zonal computer resource centers, 106 of them in the 99 zones. We will next year start training all our teachers and IT people on blended learning for the new curriculum. All these things are going because the child can, in the module, child is given YouTube reference, child is given web reference, child is given e-Taksala reference. So they can click on it and jump into the to the internet material and learn it. So all these things are there. There will be shortcomings. I know the change is not easy. Change is, but somebody has to start it. So rather than criticizing, I expect people will be with us to improve these things with constructive criticism and get our children on board with the 21st century education to meet the fourth industrial revolution meaningfully. We are trying our best to bridge general education with vocational education through the 30% of our curriculum, placing more importance to these things. So people will find employment oriented thinking through the curriculum. And already we have a separate ministry for skills development, and we are working closely with that ministry to link these things at different stage. If a child wants to leave at grade 9 and go to the vocational stream, that's fine. That is child's choice. Child wants to leave at 11 and join, that's fine. So these things are already in preparation. So I have taken a lot of time. We can discuss these things. The national school system we will have primary schools from grade 1 to 5. We will bring them together to have junior secondary schools like that. Then together junior schools will have a senior secondary schools, and that will be called a school board. Actually, the school board will be the new concept, and we will have like the American superintendent of schools, we will have a senior principal who looks after equity of all these schools. We don't want to discriminate anyone. We want equity. That is our prime objective we want to achieve, is to bring the rural child, give their fair share in the education system. These school boards will be, couple of school boards together will form the new educational zone. The zonal administration will settle all inspection issues, quality assurance, supervision, equity, all that will be assured at zonal level. The provincial council will only do the supervision and of things. So let me stop here, and thank you very much for listening to the short presentation.